Welcome to Imaginative Visions Journeys, where creators from the entertainment world discuss their journey to turning their dreams into reality. With your host, Justin D. Williams.
Welcome to Imaginative Visions Journeys, episode 5. This is Justin here, and we have a really great guest for you guys. Today we have an indie filmmaker, writer, actor as well, and we're going to talk about a little bit about his journey, and he is a really good friend of mine, no relation. Please give a round of applause and welcome Jarrell Williams to the show. Jerrell, thank you. Oops, wrong one. There we go. I've been messing up all day today. It's all good.
Hey,
How you doing, brother?
Part of the business. I'm good. I thank you for having me. Actually, I appreciate it because it's a rare opportunity to get a chance to have a platform to tell my story. So you got to take those opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I've been watching what you've been doing for a while, so I just definitely wanted to have you on journeys to talk about how did you get to this point, and let's get started with our first section. For those that know, we break our sections down. And for those who are first time listeners, we break down our show by 5 sections. So section 1 is origins, where I guess we'll talk about their humble beginnings and on how they fell in love with their passion. Section 2 is roadblocks. What are some of the challenges that you face while you're on your journey and getting to your destination, your goals? Section 3 is destination, where you finally reach your destination or you're in that path of your destination, and you could talk a little bit about your projects and how you feel when you're in your first destination when you reached it. And section 4 usually is showcase, where we get to show the product that our guests are talking about and promoting. And then section 5 is finally the road ahead. So Jarrell, we're going to kick this off with origins, and you as a filmmaker, actor, writer. Can you tell us a little bit about how, or do you remember the exact moment when you caught that bug and your passion for it?
See, that's that's an interesting question because there were 2 moments. Like, there was a moment in my life where I knew I wanted to create story, but I wasn't aware of the fact that I was doing it. Like when I was a kid, I went to a Catholic school. I went to St. Mary's Catholic School. And I was one of those kids, I was very bored in school. Like, my attention span was all over the place. And, much like yourself, I was at the time, I was a huge, tremendous fan of Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles, that was my ish. And, also Power Rangers came out at that time and everything. And, when I was in school, when I was bored out of my mind, trying to come up with things to do, I would imagine these stories. I would create these story scenarios. And a lot of the stuff I pulled from things that I watched, and this is actually a very rare exclusive, because I've never actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I've never told this story before. But when I was in 7th or 8th grade, I came up with this story about myself and 3 of my classmates, where we were just regular kids in the neighborhood, and we got mixed up in some martial arts, grounded, hood drama. And we were fighting crime and protecting the neighborhood and things like that. And to be honest, that sparked every single thing I did from that moment, because any story I created after that was birthed from that one idea, from that one random, creation I made up when I was in Catholic school, and it was inspired heavily by Ninja Turtles, because the original story, it was like my dad. I think my dad was one of the characters. It was my dad had a best friend, and my dad and his best friend were martial artists, and I was his son, and I had 3 other friends, and then, and then his best friend was a criminal, a crime lord, and we were going down trying to stop him from terrorizing. And I just created this whole thing in school, just being bored out of my mind, and because it was me and 3 of my classmates. We had weapons and everything. I had scythes. One of my friends had a sword. One girl had a bow staff. The other girl had nunchucks. It was obviously I pulled that. I pulled that. And it was it wasn't something that I actively planned to do. It's just something that it just randomly just came up. And then I got so into this own story that I created that I kept, like I just kept going with it, like in my own mind. It
So
really wasn't until, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, so I was gonna say Ninja Turtles was a heavy influence on
Yeah,
you. Just
yeah. It was very influential because I wasn't the type of person back then. Like I wasn't into like gun violence, but I loved martial arts. Like I loved hand-to-hand combat, and because like Ninja Turtles was, such like a big cartoon for me at the time, it's like I just pulled. It's like I wanted to see myself in that like in that type of situation, but I made it a situation where it was more like realistic, not so much with the mutant aspect of it and everything of that nature. But like I said, but like that was when I was like a kid, when I was in like middle school, like Catholic school. So fast forward, like I go through high school, everybody goes to like their own personal thing in high school, but in high school, like I was doing music, but I was also doing like performance, but it wasn't really like heavy. When I got to college, I started doing I went to college for psychology
mm,
because a lot of people, when I was in high school, I was very good at like counseling people, like giving people advice, like helping people out with their issues and their problems. I was a peer mediator when I was in high school, and everybody said like, oh, you should be a counselor, like you should go to college and become like a counselor, become a psychiatrist. So I went to college for psychology. I took one semester of psychology, and during that one semester, I took one acting class because I just needed an extra class just to have like on the thing. So I took one acting class, and after taking 4 psychology courses and taking that one acting class, the next semester I completely switched majors over to media arts, and I just started doing acting and film production.
oh
You know,
wow, so
yeah,
that's a hell of an introduction. I mean, for
yeah,
me, which I'll talk about on the season finale episode, but for me, it was just similar to you. It was like Ninja Turtles, but for me, it was just more like I was introduction to story. I was really pushed by my junior high school teacher, and he just like made me do like extra credit because I guess he saw like the potential and passion for like writing and telling stories. And like I've always say this to people. It's like for me, it was just like middle school I was in the photography club. Junior high I was in the school newspaper, and that's when I started writing short stories and everything else. High school I had that's when GeoCities was a thing where you have your own little web pages, and then college I went to school for creative writing, and it just all came together. So I'm just definitely like similar, amazing with the path, and I can see, especially with the project, which we're going to talk about down the line, in this episode, Shadow Warriors, how Ninja Turtles could have influenced, or at least ninja, because in the '90s, for those who don't know, for the youngins who are watching this, the '90s we had this huge ninja, I
yeah.
guess, like
And
sensational craze. Like we
yeah,
had Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Surf Ninjas. Well,
mm,
we'll forget about Surf
what
Ninjas, but
was yeah, VR Troopers.
yes,
What was the other? There was like another show. I think like because it was 2 shows. It was like VR Troopers, and there was another show where they were going inside a computer.
reboot. No, no. Well, reboots they did go inside a computer, but it was VR Troopers, Big Bag Beetleborgs. No, I can't. Oh my gosh, it's
See,
gonna
like that.
bother me.
This is gonna like haunt me for like the rest of my life now. So
Yeah, yeah, but this is so this is how you got the bug, and then you went to school obviously to just really enhance that. So you already alluded to the Ninja Turtles, but who were some of your influences growing up, watching either what a director, or actors that made you kind of study under and just go, like, I like this type of style and things like that nature.
see, the funny thing about that question, it's kind of like the reverse. It's not like I looked at somebody,
Mm,
I was like, hey, I'm gonna aspire to be this person.
mm,
Because I always created my own stories, because I always created my own scenarios, my own situations. And I tell people this all the time, like Will Smith is like one of my top 3 like favorite actors of all time. But the funny thing about it is I wanted to be Will Smith before Will Smith was Will Smith.
mm.
Like when the Fresh Prince became Will Smith, I was like, well, dang, that's exactly what I wanted to do, But I was even more drawn to him because he was doing the type of stuff that like I could see myself doing. So
Mm.
I followed his career. I followed his career a lot. That was even even musically, like there was a small moment where like I wanted to do music too, and like I'm not like I'm not the violent, like ghetto shoot 'em up bang bang person. So like his music kind of like touched me more. But it was really him. I never followed like a director or anything. I never had like a directorial influence. It was just my whole thing was I love action. I'm an action guy, and everything I write is just action based.
Okay, so that is like that was actually gonna be my next question is like what was the actual favorite genre that you love to do? So clearly you said action was one of your biggest influence, but why action?
I mean, to an extent, like we all have a hero complex. Like everybody's had that fantasy of them probably jumping out of an airplane and like saving someone's life or like just doing something heroic. And I just like the way it makes you feel, like the adrenaline rush, like the thrill, like the chase and like the suspense as well. It's just it just spoke to me more than because like I'm the type of person where like I'm afraid of heights, I can't swim, and I don't like going into hospitals. But if I'm on an airplane and like let's say like I'm with my significant other or whatever, and there's like the airplane starts crashing and there's a hole in the airplane, I'd be the first person to jump out of an airplane, save somebody, crash in the ocean, swim to shore, and take them to the hospital.
Hmm.
It's just like one of those weird things. But I've always like had that, like in me to like thrive to like the moment, like the pinnacle moment. But it also comes from being like overly dramatic as well and just like loving the genre.
Wow. So that I mean, action for me, action. I love action as well. I mean, it's just like you said, there is something with the hero complex,
Yeah,
and just the way. And I don't think people realize that action is not easy
no,
to do. Not just like to film, but to write an
yeah,
action scene is not easy. Like just writing to because when you're writing an action film or just TV or a comic, whatever you're trying to make it number one unique. You're trying to also keep the audience engaged.
yeah,
And for me, I'm not sure how you approach it, but I try to keep it to realism too. Like if some
yeah.
dude was falling down the steps, I understand adrenaline, but I want to show that hey, this dude just fell down the steps. Like it's like me and you are both big wrestling fans. You gotta sell this shit, okay?
Like how do you write that, to a point where like it comes across? And then, for me, like I said, we'll get into more of this later, but there's also the problem of like one of the biggest challenges of creating your own thing, creating your own story, your own film, whatever. You start to become very protective of it.
Mhm.
And then it gets to a point, and I say this, I've said this all the time. Anybody that knows me has heard me say this before. The biggest problem with being an actor or a filmmaker is that you need other people to make it work.
That's true.
That's the problem. If I could take everything that's going through my mind and just magically like transport it onto screen, we wouldn't have a problem. But you have to find the right people to make it work too. And that's where you yourself have to let go of like the reins a little bit, because you're always gonna have that thing in your mind of, damn it, you're not gonna ruin my thing.
Mhm.
And then you see it going a certain way in your mind, and you now have to try to find people that can project the image that you have in your mind out on the screen when you do it in real life. And there are a lot of people that, but in order for you to get there, you honestly have to let go of what you think you wanted to see in your mind.
Exactly.
Like you have to realistically tell yourself, this is what I want to do, but it's probably not going to happen. So how can we get as close to this as possible? Without yelling at your actor saying like, darn it, I told you to do a handstand on 3 fingers. Like that probably won't happen. So 5 fingers is, if we can do a handstand with 2 hands. Like we'll settle for that.
And we'll get to the roadblocks and we're going to touch on, we're going to put a pin on that in a second, but it's got to ask, what was your first acting role? Whether it was a school play, do you remember your first acting role?
It was oh man, that's a damn good question. It was, well, when I was in school, when I was doing acting and film production in school,
Mm.
I did plays and like skits and things for pretty much like anybody that would ask. Like I was always doing like other people's stuff. I worked on a real film. I worked on a film called Starting Out in the Evening, where I did background for it. Like I was helping like the grips and the lighting team, which actually like gave me, like an inside peek of what goes on behind the scenes as far as like me doing my own thing. And that contributed to me wanting to shoot my own film more. but other than that, I just did like background work. Like I did background like Law and Order. And there was another movie, I can't remember the name of it now. I think it was starring like Nicole Kidman, where it was this thing where like the king of like Africa or something was coming to New York to like the world, to sit in like the World Council and talk to like,
The Peacemaker?
No, it wasn't Peacemaker. It was, I think I can't remember it. I can't remember, but I remember we were supposed to protest the king when he pulled up in his limo. And we were supposed to have like picket signs, we were supposed to be yelling and cursing at him. And I was in that crowd of people that was, like booing him when he got out of the limo. But the funny thing about that, the movie was supposed to take place in the wintertime.
Queen of the Desert.
No.
Okay, was it Queen of the Desert? Damn, sorry about that. Continue.
in the wintertime. The Interpreter. That's what it was called.
Okay, The Interpreter. Okay.
So we were so it was supposed to be wintertime, so we were supposed to be outside booing him. So everybody had on like leather jackets and sweaters, earmuffs, gloves, scarves, this, that, and the third. But the funny thing about it was we shot that scene in the middle of July.
Oh wow.
So I remember that because I just remember the cameras are on us, everybody's filming us, and I'm standing here with this gigantic leather jacket on and a ski hat, and it's like 90 something degrees out.
Shit.
Yeah, so it was weird because we were all like, although like we did our job, like we booed him, like we were the ruckus crowd, but we were all sweating. People had their jackets open. It was just one of those funny things. But that was the first experience that I remember of doing something that I felt was important.
Wow. What a journey so far.
Yeah.
So we're gonna head into our wait, actually there is one more question or just got asked. Your company name. How did you get the name RedEyez Entertainment? Where did that come from?
Oh, that came from a lot of different things because growing up, like especially if you Black, like everybody had a tag name growing up. And my tag name growing up, which is I still use it to this day, is Icon. And
Okay.
I got the name Icon because when I was in high school, I told you I did music when I was in high school. I was in the school choir, and the choir was doing a musical performance for the high school graduation at the time. We were doing a song, but the song had like 2 rap verses in it. And the instructor of the choir, he asked me if like somebody else used to do the rap for that song. And I guess that person either didn't show up or like he bailed out on him at the last minute. And then like the instructor was like, does anybody know how to rap? And I was like, well, I can do it. So I quickly like wrote a couple of verses for the song. And when we performed that song during the graduation, during the choir, there was a moment where I got so excited and I got so hyped into the song and into the performance. I had a wireless microphone in my hand. I ran down the aisle and jumped on top of the piano. and I was doing the second verse to the rap on top of the piano. And when I did that, like the entire building like lost their mind. And a friend of mine, he was like laughing, and then he was just like, "Yo, you just became an icon for like for doing that." And then that's where the name came from, because it was also a wrestling joke, because whenever like people who were wrestling fans, when they saw me, they were like, "Oh, there goes the icon, the showstopper, the main event," like the people's choice. So it just became a running joke, and I just stuck with it.
Wow.
Branding wise, I changed it because it just used to be ICON. But branding wise, when I got to a point where I wanted to like do my own company and like have a YouTube channel and do other things, I changed it from ICON to EYECON. Like the actual like icon, because it was just something where it just looked cooler. Like having like the word I and then like the word con under it, it filled it out more. Like it looked more presentable as like a brand. The red comes in because red is my favorite color.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, when I first started the company, it was me and my now ex-wife. We were married at the time. We came up with the name called Red Shore Media, because when I grew up as a child, like I grew up in the projects, and the housing project that I grew up in was called Red Fern Projects. She grew up in a building complex called Shorefront Parkway. So we just put both together, and it was like Red Shore, like Red Shore Media. But then like later on when, her and I got divorced, like she went her separate way, like I went mine. But when I continued to, to do the acting and to do the film stuff and to do the YouTube channel, I kept the red part of it,
Mhm.
But then I was like, well, I'm not going to keep the shore, but I need something new. But I'm like, well, I'm still the icon. So, we're keeping the color red. We're putting the word I in it because I'm the icon. And then, you can't have one eye, so you got to have two. So I put the Z at the end of it. And then I just added
Nice.
the entertainment. So it's like RedEyez Entertainment. It's a play on like my tag name and my favorite color.
Oh, wow. That is the hell of an origin story, especially because I never knew. So that's exactly what I wanted to include. I was like, why is it called Red Eyes? And it actually makes perfect sense, especially you coming from the firm, growing
Yeah.
up in the firm. And for those who don't know, Red Fern is the projects in Far Rockaway, Queens, New York. For those who don't live in New York, and those who are watching who are from Far Rock, they're probably gonna go Far Rock. So yes, Far Rock. Shout out to Far Rock again. So we're gonna get into the next section, which is roadblocks. And as I described earlier, ladies and gentlemen, roadblocks is when we talk about the challenges of getting to our journey of getting into that destination. So, Jarrell, what were some of the challenges that you face of coming up with Shadow Warriors, writing the story, and obviously the trailer? We'll talk about the trailer during the showcase a little bit, but what were some of the challenges of this like really major project that you're working on?
I mean, the biggest right out the gate, regardless of what it is I've ever tried to do, the biggest challenge has always been somebody just seeing what I can
Mm,
do. It's just like I know I have the talent and the know-how. I just need somebody to watch it. And when I was in college, I told you I did acting when I was in college. I
mm,
went on auditions. Like I hit the pavement. I did my resume. I did headshots. I went all around New York City. Back then, because see, it's different nowadays. Like when you go on an audition nowadays, they give you like a time to show up. You show up at your time. You go in the room. You do your audition, and that's it. When I was going on auditions, we had
mm.
to stand online, to be seen to go into the audition. And the
So,
lines used to be so long. Like if the place where the audition was being held was on 46th Street, and you have to take you have to get to 42nd Street, that's the closest train station. When you came out of the train station, you were online.
mm,
Like the line started at the train station and you were 4 blocks down and you had to wait to be seen to get to 46th Street to actually be seen by somebody. I've done cold reads for people. I've done like improv castings for people, but the very last and like I auditioned for so many projects, I don't even know if half of them even got off the ground, but the very last time I ever did an audition, like an actual like audition, I was doing it was and it's funny because I auditioned for Sky High.
oh wow, okay.
And I was the very last person that got seen by the casting director. And when I did my audition, there were 3 people sitting at the table. One woman specifically, she said that she really liked my audition. Like she said that she was very impressed and that she liked it, which made me feel good because I was like, wow, like this might be my shot. Like I could have been in Sky High, but they never called me. I never got a call for that. So I guess the other 2 thought I wasn't a good look or didn't like me. But that got me to a point where that's when I started getting frustrated because I was doing this for like 2 years,
Mm.
and while I'm online, I'm out there in the cold and the heat, doing all these performances. Like I love performing, like I love auditioning, but eventually you get tired of not getting picked for anything. And then you also get tired of being told you have all this talent, but then it's like, well, then why didn't you pick me? But when I'm online going on these auditions, what happened was my childhood kicked back in, and those same stories that I started creating back when I was in Catholic school, those stories started to like reappear and they started to reemerge. And then I
Mm.
got to a point where I was like, you know what? I have story ideas. I'm going to school for acting and film production. They taught me how to shoot a camera. They taught me how to do video editing. They taught me how to do lighting. They basically, like when I went to school, you guys basically taught me how to shoot a film. So
Mm.
instead of continuing to just keep going on auditions, waiting for someone else to choose me for their project, I might as well just get all the necessary ingredients together and shoot one myself.
Which
Because
makes
I just got
sense.
to the point where I got tired of thinking about the stories and I was like, it's time to take it out of here and put it on paper.
And let's just put a pin right there because this is something that I always, and this seems to be a common theme with the show, with all the people that we interviewed so far, is that everyone that we had on the show so far took an initiative. Either like they tried to make a breakthrough with either of a company, they did auditions, or someone was not able to. No one was open minded enough to give someone an opportunity, a chance, and so everybody just said, fuck it. I'm gonna do this on my own. I'm gonna build my own company. I'm gonna do it my own way. And that for me is always fascinating because that is something, especially in this day and age, which I to this day I always tell people who ask me like, "Oh, how did you do this? How did you do that?" It's just that I wouldn't sign unless it was like a license agreement where I still own everything. I wouldn't sign with a major production company or anything else like that unless I still fully own the rights. And you're just basically leasing my shit, and I
Yeah.
still have creative control. And it's just like with the age of independence, such as obviously we have the Netflixes, we have the YouTubes, we have Vimeo, we have all these avenues for young filmmakers out there. It just seems kind of counterproductive to just kind of trying to get into that system at this point. So for you to just actually just say, you know what, screw this, I'm gonna do this shit on my own. It really is amazing, especially because there's not many of us that
Yeah.
actually go out and do something like that. So I just want to just give you just an applause for that because that is just
Thank you.
no, seriously, because that a lot of people talk about it. People get frustrated on their journey,
Yeah.
like and things with especially you're an actor, you're a director, you're a writer. Especially with the acting, you know that half the night, at least 90% of the time you go to audition, you're gonna hear no, you're gonna get negative feedback. Like you really have to have a thick skin in this industry, and and it's just like you just said, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna do it on my own. So continue on with that process of how did you get to that point of just really writing the story and just started to film that trailer and everything else like that.
Well, see, that's the, that's where like some of the difficulties came in at, because
Mm,
the one thing about like this entire process that I don't like, I hate the process of typing a story.
mm,
So like if I know somebody that loves typing, and I know how to type too, which is crazy. Like I'm one of the few people that can actually like do this, and I can type without looking at the keyboard. I just hate doing it because I find it like very tedious. And it's like I wish I could just tell somebody what's in my mind and just have them write it down. But I was just like, but in order for me to do this project, I have to actually put this on paper.
mm,
So I had to sit down, get a script writing program together, and I just started like writing I started writing the story, and the story actually evolved. It started evolving a little bit from where I first created it when like when I was in Catholic school. Like
mm.
it got to a point where instead of like using like my dad and like my dad's friend, I said to myself, I was like, hey, it would be cool if those same two characters were both women instead of dudes. Like that would be a little bit more interesting because it's something that you don't really see. Like there's always like this force of like good and evil when it comes to like guys. You never really see that with women. So I decided to change like certain characters around. And then I wrote it when I wrote the original script, and this is before it was even called Shadow Wars.
Mhm.
When I wrote the original script, it was only 37 pages long. And that was the
That's a
entire.
short film.
But see, but that's the thing. It is a short film, but in my mind, it was a full length feature.
Mm,
But I wasn't good at beefing it up. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew I knew like the important points of the story that I wanted to touch on. I knew how I wanted the story to go. What I was bad at, and I didn't realize at the time, I was very bad at character development,
ooh.
especially when it came to the certain characters that weren't the main focus of the project. So then, but my wife at the time, she was a writer. Her and I went to the same college. She went for media arts, and she was there for video editing, and she was there for like screenwriting, everything. She loved writing. Like she loved typing stories. She was into all that stuff. So I was like, well, this is perfect because all the stuff about media that I don't like, you like. And
Mm.
all the stuff that you don't think you're good at, that's all the stuff that I do. So I gave her I gave her my script. Like I gave her my script, and she turned that thing from 37 pages to about 110.
Ooh, so that's about an hour and 50 minutes script
Yeah,
wise.
turned it to 110. See, but then because it's an action film, because like you said, it's like an hour and like 15, 20 minutes. See, but now add in all the fight scenes because you can't write a fight scene on paper. like the actual like time length of a fight scene, you can't put that on paper.
You
All you
can't.
write is then the two of them got into a fight. But that fight could take 10 minutes. So
Exactly.
add in the time for fight scenes, it dragged out over the like over the 90-minute, close to the 2 hour mark. you know and she did a very good job of like flushing out like certain characters, giving certain characters like backstory, like a better backstory. And then because the Shadow Warriors story, it's about two women that grew up that they grew up, they're best friends when they were kids. They grew up into the martial arts. When they got older, they traveled all over the world. They competed in fighting tournaments all over the world. But the two of them had a falling out at one point. And when they had that falling out,
Mhm.
the evil one, she came back to New York City and she started an all-female crime organization of girls that like orphan girls that she just pulled off the streets. The good one, she opened up a martial arts gym in Queens, and she started like bringing kids into her martial arts gym. It was almost like they both basically went the route of bringing in the youth, but one was doing it in a positive manner and the other was doing it in a negative manner.
Mm.
And and even the decision to make it an all-female criminal organization, that change literally came when we were casting to actually shoot the project. So this was like years later. When in the original script, it was just a criminal organization that just happened to be run by a woman. It wasn't until later where the decision was made to make it an all-female criminal organization. And there's a funny story about that too, when we like how that whole thing happened. So when we were doing the casting for the film, we sent out a casting audition and we were looking for both men and women. It was there as clear as day. We were looking for like, because at the time, like I wanted 12 people, like 12, like henchmen, if you will. I said we were looking for 6 guys and 6 girls. We sent out, like invitations to so many different guys, so many different girls. Maybe like close to we sent the auditions out to 100 guys and probably maybe like 60 girls.
Oh
The
wow.
day of the casting, none of the guys showed up.
Wow.
None of the guys showed up, and pretty
How you
much,
not show up to your own audition that you're auditioning for?
yeah. It could be different things. Maybe they got another audition somewhere else. Like because, and that's another thing. Like when you do an independent film and you're dealing with actors, and especially if you're asking actors to do it for free,
Yeah.
you need to stockpile your actors because you're not. It's gonna be consider yourself lucky if you keep the original people that you chose.
Mm.
Because the moment another gig comes up that's actually paying, they're going to take that instead, which is fine, but just be professional about it and let me know so I can substitute you for somebody else. Don't just not show up. And there were a lot of people doing it. There was only like one person like who told me straight up, he was like, yo, listen, I got something else. And I said that was fine. But like I said, but we auditioned, we auditioned like nothing but women. No guys showed up. And then when I was talking to my casting director, he was just like, wow. He said, we saw a lot of really good talent. We met a lot of really good actresses. He was just like, it's a shame. He said, it's a shame your film isn't about an all-female criminal organization because we had a perfect group of people. And then I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, shit, why can't it be? Because, and that's another thing. When you're the person that wrote it, you can change anything that you want about it and still make it make sense
Exactly.
because you're the only person that knows how the continuity is supposed to go. So you can make all the changes in the world and still keep the continuity. And then I told him, I said, well, why can't it be an all-female criminal organization? And then around the time where, like women's empowerment started becoming bigger and bigger, and we were seeing more women do bigger things and women, being the forefront of a lot of things in all forms of entertainment and in life in general, I was just like, this would be the perfect moment. And because the head of the criminal organization was a woman, and because women are more inconspicuous, like me, if as a black male,
Mm.
I can go into a gangster bar right now. And the moment I walk into that bar, everybody's going to turn and look at me as though I got 3 heads. If a beautiful woman walks into that bar, nobody's going to bat an eye.
Exactly.
They're not going to give it a second thought. And she could be the person who came in here to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more and more I thought about it, I was like, shit, I actually like this better. And then it became a criminal organization of women, and we called that criminal organization the Shadow Dolls.
Nice. I like that concept right there. It's just amazing because how when you're doing production, everything just changes sometimes on the fly, and you constantly do have to adapt to the changes. Like you just art just brilliantly just pointed out, like, hey, no guy showed up, so story changes, and now it's just in all and just just to touch on just the way things are going with the world, the way the world is with representation, and everything else. That's perfect right there. Like you can have 12 women just all all getting a chance, indie artists all also being able to get a chance to showcase their talents and everything else like that. So that was one of those really major challenges, especially as you put it with when it comes to the writing. And I can definitely relate to you on the writing aspect. Is just that sometimes, like even just for me, it's I know the beginning, I know the ending. The
Yeah.
middle is always the hardest part. I'm just like, so what happens in between this?
Yeah,
I absolutely have no idea. I have
I-
to figure that part out. Like all I know is how it starts and
yeah,
how it ends. The characters, I know the journey of the characters. Like the character development is never an issue with me. It's just like, how do I get them to that point? Is always going to be like the issue.
but the beautiful thing is because you know the beginning and because you know the ending, once you're actually sitting down, once you type the beginning, the middle fills itself
Usually for me,
in.
no. Sometimes it takes me literally a month for the middle part to come in. I'm like, oh, so this is the part this is the piece that I'm looking for. But I mean, let's delve in a little bit more into the what would you say was your biggest roadblock of getting your project off the ground? As you just said, with writing and obviously the casting, but what was some of the challenges of actually finding these people when it comes to casting and just getting
Well,
the
that's a loaded question in itself because when people watch the trailer, the first question everyone asks me, where did you find these girls?
mm,
And I'm like, I went on Google, I typed in post a casting call, and I got a whole bunch of like websites where you can go online and post a casting call. One of them was called Casting Networks, which was one that I used a lot. And
mm,
when you start typing the name of your project, you give a brief description of the characters that you're looking for, age, height, blah blah blah. When you get to the very bottom, they specifically ask you, is this a paying gig or is it a non-paying gig? And then, once you put it's a non-paying gig, you're either going to get people who are just starting out into acting and they need to build a reel, so they'll do anything just to have something to showcase people. You get actors that are probably in SAG, but they're not really doing things that they want to do, so they do independent projects as like you might be a SAG actor, but you do like very like menial like little things. You never get a chance to like showcase what you can really do, so
mm.
you want to do independent projects just to feel like you have like a major role in something. And then you just flat out get the people, they're just like, listen, I just think this stuff is cool and whatever you need me to do, I'll do. All you really have to do is just promise them that when it's over, you'll give them a copy of every single thing that they do so they can use that, for their own benefit later on down the line. But the
Whew.
struggle with that is also, like I was saying before, it's keeping them because everybody says they want to do this until they actually have to do this. And there are a lot of people where it's like once they see that it's work, they tend to like bow out. And for my project, and I hate to say it like that, but we're keeping it real. I cast a whole bunch of women, and I was doing a martial arts film,
Mm,
and not all of them were in tune with the martial arts.
mm,
So, you bring everybody in the room. I ended up hiring somebody to train them, like in like combat, like light fight training, just like punches and kicks. You have to get used to it because you got to make it look like you know what you're doing. And then there was one girl specifically, she was cast to be like one of the main characters in the project. We're in the training, it's training day, we're in the training thing, all the girls are there, the trainer is there, we're getting ready to do this. And then the girl said she had never got hit. She said she's never thrown a punch before and she's never been hit in the face before.
wow.
And I'm and I'm sitting here and I'm like, when we auditioned you, after the audition was over, we specifically asked you, do you have an issue with combat, with possibly getting hit? Because you try to be as safe as possible.
Yeah.
But accidents do happen. And just in case someone accidentally like hits you in the chin or like you have to be, we just want to let you know that could happen, like, like you have to be okay with that. But to get the part, everybody's gonna tell you yes. And then when you're in the training thing, and then you say action, somebody gets ready to throw a fake punch, and then the girl like completely covers her face, and she's supposed to be a badass assassin. Like you're sitting here like, okay, didn't see that one coming, you know. But that was but that's just really about just getting comfortable with them and surrounding like the people who are training. You can't have a trainer that has a militant personality,
Yeah.
because you're going to scare them and you're going to make it work. You got to find somebody that understands this person is probably terrified, and you have to put them in a position where they get more comfortable. That's why I always did the training with everybody together to let everybody know you're not the only one in the situation that you're in right now. Like you all are in the same boat.
Especially working with actors as well. You want somebody who's not, like you said, not going to be a drill sergeant. Like, you didn't do it, you're not doing it. And I think for a lot of actors, because actors do talk, and I think we are. You're an actor, Actors will go back to other actors and tell them about the experience working with a certain director, a certain company, a certain production. So if they had a wonderful time, obviously they tell their friends, like, hey, they tell the other actor friends, this guy was good, this company treated us well. And if you didn't, or this guy was a tyrant, don't you get labeled that infamous hard to work with.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something that you definitely do not want to be labeled as, either whether you're indie, mainstream. Hard to work with is absolutely the death sentence
It's a career.
of a label.
It's a career killer.
It really is. And we're gonna talk about one more journey, because one more roadblock is, I always want to notice to ask a filmmaker this: your equipment. What is the process of choosing the right camera that you want to use? Obviously, budget is a big thing, but as for indie, but how do you deal with either budget limitations, or obviously I'm pretty sure you don't have a studio, so like how were you able to film without the giant blue screens and all this other stuff?
Honestly, when the project started, and that's not even the biggest roadblock. Like I'll tell you in the end what the biggest roadblock was. But when I started the project, I honestly thought that the behind the scenes, like you said, the equipment and the cameras and lighting, I honestly thought that would be the biggest obstacle.
Mhm.
The equipment was actually the easiest part of the entire process. The hardest part of the entire process was finding actors. And I did not think that would be the hardest part, because I was just like, oh, you could always find people that want to do something fun and like action based and entertaining. Finding people was harder than getting equipment. Like I
Mm.
was able to get lights off Amazon. Like
Okay.
I knew people who had their own equipment. I had my own camera at like at the time. Like I had a camera. My friend had a camera. Like I said, I went on Amazon. Like I purchased a bunch of lights. So and then as far as the script is concerned, when I wrote the original script, I wrote it broke. Like I told myself, I'm like, well, I can't do like exploding car chases and big helicopter chases.
Mhm.
I can't do guns and stuff because I'm black, and I don't want to have prop guns out there in the streets and then I get run up on. So
That's true too.
yeah, like I have no money, like I can't afford to pay anybody, but I have all this equipment and I have a really good idea. So how can I make an action film, as grounded and as low budget as possible? And then I was like, oh, do martial arts. Do martial arts, and that'll solve all the problems. Because if you're out there in the shadows, if you're, like if you're doing stuff like, because that's the whole thing. Like when you do like martial arts, like action type films, all that stuff takes place like like in the shadow. It takes place like incognito. You're not out there in the public. So when you shoot all your stuff, you're shooting your stuff in like dark alleys. You're shooting your stuff in like, like hidden places. You're not shooting it out in the street in front of a whole bunch of people. So nobody can say like, oh, that's not realistic. How are you guys having a fight and there's nobody around? Because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Because somebody tried to break into a building to steal something and they got stopped by somebody else at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's
Mm.
why there's nobody outside. I basically just wrote it broke. and and I figured if I write it broke, imagine what can I do if I actually do get a little bit of change.
Mm.
And so I'm like, if the opportunity comes to make it better, we can always make it better, but let's just keep it, let's just keep it where it is for now. And then you got to learn how to like steal places too, because like I shot some of the scenes for my film. I shot them at my job because my job had like a big lounge area, and there were two characters in the script that they both worked at a cafe. The cafeteria at my job looked like a cafe, and
Mhm.
since nobody's there on weekends, we shot there on the weekends. There was a studio in Manhattan. There is a studio in Manhattan called Ripley Greer Studios, where you can basically rent a room, like any size room, like a dance room. You can rent just like a regular basic room, and the prices are really cheap. Like we rented rooms for like $24 for like an hour or two to do casting, to do training, and then then when I thought about it, because I was doing a film about a crime organization, I was like, well, hell, we can just rent rooms in this building and just shoot it in this building.
Makes sense.
And that's exactly what we did. We shot everything, and it didn't really cost. It just cost me maybe what, $50 for the day, and we got a lot of scenes done that way. So
Yeah, that's something people who are not on the indies can't. I look at it, and not to just use professional wrestling terms, but it really is kind of like being in your own wrestling promotion. Like when you have to really book yourself, promote yourself, find ways to cost effective to put on a show. You got to get your audience, obviously, which is obviously the biggest roadblock for anyone on the indies is getting that audience.
mhm.
But obviously casting, you're getting your wrestlers and everything else like that. And so you found a way to effectively, and that actually just makes sense. It's like, okay, why don't I just film the whole damn thing here and
Yeah,
just
like we've been coming here for weeks doing castings. This looks like a warehouse. All we gotta do is just dim the lights, get some boxes.
yeah,
And that's exactly what we did.
dress it up on a set. I mean, you rent it to rooms, so technically the room is yours. Let me dress it up a little bit, film it, remove all the equipment and everything else when we're done, and put it back together how it was.
And
So, I mean,
anything, anything that we shot outside,
hmm,
we shot in Far Rockaway. All the interior scenes were shot in Manhattan. All the exterior scenes were shot in Far Rockaway. And the reason, for anybody that's that's listening, if you shoot an outside scene in Manhattan and it looks like you're doing something important, the police and every nosy person all up in your business will come over. Oh, do you have a permit? This, that, the third. Why are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. When you shoot in Far Rockaway, nobody cares.
mhm. that
Nobody cares.
that
When
is
we
actual facts.
shot the very first scene for Shadow Warriors, the police legitimately rolled up on us while we were filming. And they didn't run up on us because we were filming. They saw, because the opening scene, it was three of the criminal girls
Mm,
fighting one girl.
mm,
And they had like their costumes on and they had masks on and everything. The cops saw them putting masks on, and that made them come over and be like, what the hell are they doing over there? Like we were in the park, like trying to jack people. So,
mm.
but then when they came over and then they looked and they saw we had camera equipment and lighting, and he's like, oh, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, we're just shooting, it's like, we're just shooting a film, like an action, like, like martial arts based film. He was like, oh, that's cool. He said, yeah, we just came over here because we saw y'all were putting on masks and stuff. And we just wanted to know. It's like, all right, have a good one. And then they left. Like that was, if I was in Manhattan, it would have went the other way. It would have went completely the other way.
Yeah, it would have been permit. Where your permit? Where your permit at? Where your permit at?
They thought it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Rockaway cops are so lax when it comes to filming, and some of them might even actually like, "Hey, I get off like certain time. You mind if I, do a cameo?" I kid you not. They will probably they're the type that will probably like, "Yo, can I get a cameo in this?" Like, yeah, I guess as long as you don't say nothing.
That would have been perfectly fine.
But we talked a little bit about the roadblocks, so we're gonna get into the destination. So how did it feel? I mean, you filmed, the trailer comes out. What was your feeling like, man, when you finally that day you uploaded to YouTube, you press upload, what was going through your mind and how did it feel to reach that destination? It's like
I mean, so much went into that though, because and to give like the real answer to your previous question, the biggest roadblock was me. Like the biggest roadblock was me because when I first started the project, it was myself, It was my ex-wife. They said we were married at the time, and it was one of my best friends. Because he went to LA, like he did writing. He was a writer when he was in LA, so he helped me with the casting and everything. The three of us were doing it together. During the creation of trying to put the project together, her and I unfortunately went through our divorce. So now having a person who was basically with you from the start of this, like she helped me write half the script, and now all of a sudden she's gone. She was the person who was doing the editing. I no longer have an editor. I no longer have like, my script supervisor.
Mm.
So it just became me and him. And also you're just trying to deal with the real life emotional aspects of going through a divorce. And
Yeah.
still trying to get this project off the ground, still doing casting and everything. But myself and my friend, he and I, we worked on it, we got everything done. We got all the actresses and actors cast, and we were ready to shoot. A week before we were supposed to shoot the first scene, he had to bail out of the project because his dad got sick and had to go to the hospital because he was having like a real major surgery, and he
Mm.
wasn't going to be able to be there, for the start of the project. He actually said that he couldn't do it because he needed to be with his dad, which I understood. So now it's like I lost my ride or die, and then the only other person who was actually keeping me afloat, he's gone now.
Mm.
Emotionally, I was like, yo, I don't even want to do this anymore.
Mm.
And the only thing the two things saved me from continuing the project. One, I remember I like in conversation when I first started the project, I was told my ex said this to me one time. She said, listen, she said, this is your story, this is your thing. If you want to do this film, she was like, you have to be the one to drive the engine. You can't rely on other people to do it. Because she said, if this project doesn't work, everybody's going to look at it as your fault. They're not going to say, oh, the project didn't work because of the actors. The project didn't work because of the behind the scenes people. All they're going to know is, well, this was Jarrell's project. It didn't work. It's Jarrell's fault. And I didn't want that stigma on me because that's true. Like it's a true given fact. And one of the actresses actually emailed me and she was like, hey, I just wanted to check in and see if we're still doing the filming. But she said, I'm still excited and I'm still down. And when she wrote me that email about her being excited to do it, that reminded me why I did it.
Exactly.
And then I had to pick myself up and be like, you know what? Even if I got to do it myself, I'm Justin. I did. I ended up changing the script because certain things did happen. So the script went from like 115 pages to like 147 by the time we were ready to shoot it. I revised the script. I changed certain characters. I did the casting. I did the directing. I shot half of it. I did the editing. I did
Mm.
the fight choreography. Like I basically did the entire thing by myself. Well, my brother, he came and helped me towards the end. Sean actually helped me towards the end too. But before we got to the end of filming, in the beginning of the filming, I did the entire thing by myself. I wore every single hat, and we got 8 scenes done with me just being in charge of the entire process.
Whew.
When we finished the film, when we shot the very last scene, I swear to you, it took me 3 weeks before I even looked at that footage to start editing it to put that trailer
Damn.
together. Because I went through so much dealing with like actor attitudes and people quitting and having to interchange people and shooting and doing audio. Because I basically did the I was because I was a one-man studio, when we were done, the last thing I wanted to do was look at that damn footage.
I can let me just pause it right there. I can freaking relate to that one. Like I feel it's such and the reason why I pause it right here, folks, is because I want people to realize what are your like my friend Keenan, he made a game. When Keenan was our first guest, he's talked about his game, Amani tattoos. When you're done with a project and when you're on the indies, yes, you love your baby, you love your child, but is at that point when you're done, you're like, I don't want to deal with you right now. You're done. Leave me the hell alone. I don't want to see you until I'm ready. I'm the same way when I did Cry Hero 1 and 2. I didn't want to think about this plan. I didn't want to think about the world, the planet I was building. I just wanted to do something else and just focus somewhere else. But unfortunately, you can't. Like you take a little break, but then you got to get right back into it. You got to get right back to the editing. You got to get back right into the footage. And one thing I also wanted to pin is because you lost a lot. Obviously, you say you got divorced, your friend dropped out, your partner dropped out, and but at the same time, you knew that you had these actors who already committed and spent time on this thing, and to cancel. And that's one thing I've heard from a lot of actors as well, is that it's heartbreaking when you take the time to film something and then it never gets released, it's shelved or anything else like that. So for you to go like, no, I gotta complete this. I definitely gotta complete this. That's something. I once again another applause for that, because that's no, I'm serious, because there's so many people who want to do this shit and they just stop. They
Yeah,
just stop because life throws the wrench. And the lesson here is how bad you want it. How bad do you want it? There's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be, so how bad do you want this thing to actually turn into fruition? And man, props to you to keep going.
thank you. Yeah, and then, and it also meant a lot to, like towards the end, because my brother, he's one of the actors in the film, but to have him work with me behind the scenes, and it wasn't something where I came to him and I said, "Hey, listen, can you help me work on it?" Because I was determined to do it by myself at that point. He took it upon himself during the course of, the entire film. He started taking like combat classes and fight choreography classes, and then he said to me one day, he was like, "Hey, listen, I've been taking these choreography classes for a while, so I can help you with the fight choreography." And then I was like, "Oh."
Mm.
It ended up being me and him who finished the project, and that meant a lot to me, to like to have him with me, to get to the end of that. But when the trailer was ready and it was ready to go, and and I was happy with the finished product, the day that I was gonna upload it, because even then, like I had started that by then I had started my YouTube channel.
Mm.
And my YouTube channel, I created the RedEyez Entertainment YouTube channel. Well, the original name of my YouTube channel was called Eye Contact. And then
Okay.
that was the original name. But then because I really liked the RedEyez Entertainment, I was like, well, I just did a film trailer.
Mm.
Like, I need to come up with like an actual like studio name now. So then that's when I came up with the RedEyez Entertainment. Because I had the YouTube channel for about a year before I started telling people that I had a YouTube channel.
Mm.
Because I was like, because like it was weird. The YouTube channel was weird to me. And my whole thing was, before I start telling people that I have one, I want to actually have content on it first. So I did the YouTube thing for like a year. I did videos, like I did like video game live streaming gameplay. I did reviews for like TV shows and movies. But then when I finished my film trailer and I was ready to upload it, I was like, now I can start telling people about my YouTube channel. Because my movie trailer was like the cornerstone of building the RedEyez Entertainment brand. And the day that I was gonna upload it to YouTube, and I was gonna tell everybody on Facebook and Instagram and everything, like, hey, go on my YouTube channel and check out my film trailer, my Facebook account got hacked. My Facebook account got hacked. And it was like a weird video that just randomly got sent out to everybody that I know in my name. And I had to send so many messages to people saying, listen, don't click on that. Don't open that. It's spam. Like I got hacked, blah, blah, blah. And it was so frustrating because I'm thinking to myself now, I was about to send a message to everybody telling them to click on this link I'm about to send you to watch a video.
Mm.
And now everybody got a link for a video, that was a fake hacked video. So I'm just like, well, shoot. Now when I'm actually ready to tell people about my thing, nobody's gonna trust the link when I when I send it to them based on what happened the last time. So I waited like a month before I ended up, actually I had the trailer for a month before I uploaded it and told everybody.
Hit after hit after hit after hit. I mean, when it rains, it pours, man.
But I look at it like this, like the Lord's plan and all that. Maybe it wasn't meant for me to upload it that day.
Exactly.
Like I thought I was ready to go. I thought everything was, was in sync, and then the Lord was like, "Hold up," But then, I uploaded it. I eventually uploaded it a month later. It got like it got over 2K hits.
Which
So
is good.
yeah, and that was surprising to me, because when I uploaded it, I said, okay, we'll just let this rock. I'll check on it maybe tonight or tomorrow. By then, maybe I'll have like, 30 views or like 45 or something
Mm.
like that. When I checked on it the next morning, I was at like 500. And I was like, oh snap. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like I felt good about that. And then like 2 days later, we got to 7. We got to 8. And then one day it said 1.4K. And I was like, wait, I was like, yo, who's watching this thing? I was like 1K. I was like, who is watching this trailer? And then when I hit the 2K mark, that let me know I did the right thing. I was just like, wow, like people, I was like, and the funny thing is, I only got one dislike, like for the only one person, and even now I'm like, yo, who disliked this? Like it's one of those things where it's just like, I'm not mad you disliked it. I'm just really curious as to why.
You know what? Let me just touch on that because I get that too. With ONG videos, and I get that with Imaginative Vision videos as well. There's usually that one freaking person, and I kid you not. If it's just one dislike, I guarantee you the person didn't even watch the damn video. They are one of those people that sees that nothing is disliked, and they just got to be the dickhead to do it. I kid you not. There is collective people who go to YouTube, Twitter, or whatever it is, and just want to press a dislike because nothing's been disliked. It boggles my mind.
But also, but you want to know what's funny about that? When I saw the dislike, that actually was more important to me than all the likes I had gotten.
Oh yeah.
Because now I was just like, you have haters now. So, which means the fact that somebody took because I felt the opposite of what you just said. I was just like, wow, although you gave me a thumbs down, you still watched it. You know what I'm saying? Like you still clicked on it. So I was like, that's actually kind of cool. Like that was actually it was kind of cool to see that. So that's what I was like at the end of the day, like I was happy with it. I was happy with how it turned out, and the emotional reward was definitely worth, like the aggravation, that I went through during the entire process.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely can relate to that part. But let's get into we did talk a little bit about Shadow Wars, but I do want to touch a little bit about this web series. You alluded to it before. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's that going to be? Because I believe you said you were going to return to that and return to filming
Yeah.
next year. And how did the pandemic kind of halt plans for everything?
Um, the pandemic actually, the pandemic did two things for me. It gave me the time that I needed to start writing the web series, like first and foremost. So that was a good thing. But I mean, let's just keep it real. Like I got furloughed, I was getting unemployment checks, and the money it helped me upgrade like my equipment, to do certain things on like a bigger scale. But it was more so like the direction that everything's going in now, where people are doing like series, like it's a series route. People are doing web series, things of that nature. So I was just like, well, I can do a web series. That's not a problem. My Shadow Warrior story is a 20 arc film, like film story with different, because I mean, even you and I have had conversations about it. You only know about the Shadow Warriors. Like that's like Shadow, and on the script, on the Shadow Warriors script, it actually says Shadow Warriors Chapter 1. Like you don't know about Chapter 2. Like you don't know about Red Velvet. Like you don't know about like all the other stuff. But then I was just like, you know what? I was like, I think I need to dabble in this, like, especially now I have a YouTube channel now, like I'm doing YouTube videos. If I can do a web series, like a 20 to 30 episode, maybe 8 episode web series, 20, 30 minutes, that's something that I can put on the channel. And it's something that can keep it alive, while I continue to work on doing like my other film stuff. And then I came up, I came up with an idea for it, which was birthed by one of my favorite TV shows, which was Arrow. Like the web series, it was because everything that I do is taken from something. Like even and it could be like the littlest detail that somebody, unless there's somebody like me, they wouldn't even notice it. Like, for example, in the Shadow Warriors film, there's a scene where one of the characters goes into a museum to steal a diamond. And then my character goes into the museum to stop that person from stealing the diamond. And then the two of us get into a fight in the museum. That whole scene, I took from an episode of Jackie Chan Adventures,
Wow.
where Jackie was in a museum fighting a character called Viper because she went into the museum to steal something called the Pink Puma. And I watched that scene, and for some reason, I was just like, "Hey, like it sparked this whole thing." The web series, the idea came from Arrow because Arrow was my favorite television show. And when I found out that Arrow was over, when they decided to end it after 8 seasons, emotionally, like I couldn't handle it. I was like, I need my Arrow, and I ended up coming up, and then, and also there was a lot of personal aspects of that went into the web series too, because the web series story, it's called Rockaway City. It's a story about a crime family, like husband and wife. They got 6 kids, and that was taken from my personal life because like I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. So it's a crime family. They do everything. They do drugs. They do weapons. Like they do hookers. Like they basically like they run the city. But one of the kids, like my character, he's not really into the family business, so to speak. Like he runs like the weapons, like like the weapons cache that they have, but he's not really. He wants to do other things with his life. So he goes to college. He wants to become like an actor. He wants to make. He wants to go to Hollywood. He meets a girl in college. The two of them fall in love. They get married, and then they decide that they're going to move to California together so he can pursue his acting career. The mom, who's like the head, she's like the villain of the entire film. She pretends to be happy for them, and then but secretly she's not, because she doesn't want her son leaving the family business, because like when you're in the business for life. So his wife, she ends up going on a business trip, and they say that the conversation is when she comes back from the business trip, they're going to leave and they're going to move to California. When she drives to go on her business trip, her car, like her brakes don't work, her car runs off the road, and her car actually goes off a cliff and then she dies. So that puts him in like an emotional wreck. Like, he's upset. He still ends up quitting like the family business, because his whole thing is like, we were gonna quit together, but now that she's gone, I'm gonna honor her memory by still not doing the family business. But then there's like there's a detective, like a female detective in town now, because her husband got killed by the crime family. So she's in town now investigating the crime family. She goes and talks to him, basically saying like, listen, I know you're not in your family business anymore, but if you can help me take them down, I would appreciate it. And while they're talking, she makes a comment to him about, I'm sorry to hear about, like your wife's murder. And then, he's like, murder, why would you say murder? Like my wife had an accident, like her car, got run off the road. And then she was like, no, she said, didn't you actually look at the accident report? Your wife's brakes were cut. Like there was acid poured on her brakes. So now he's kind of like, this is 2 years later now. So now he's kind of like, what the hell? He goes, investigates. He finds the person who cut the brakes, who bled the brakes. And when he runs up on him, and he's just like, yo, why did you murder my wife? Like, like who paid you to murder my wife? The guy was like, your mom paid me to do it. So now he's like lost it. His whole thing is, my family, came together and plotted to have my wife killed just because I was going to leave the family. So what he does now, he goes out at night, because he was he's a martial arts, like him and his wife, like they were both like kickboxers, like they did like martial arts training, they did kickboxing together. And again, he used to run the weapons cache, for the family business. He goes out at night, and his whole mission is to take down his family business from from the inside, because he's the only person that knows how to do it. But to everyone else, he's just some random vigilante that's trying to like uproot them out of town. He has like a hood on. There's an episode where he goes after his older brother's business. He goes after like his younger brother owns a chop shop. He goes after the chop shop. Episode 4, he goes after the whorehouse. It's like this whole big thing where he's like taking out his family, like his whole family business. And the tagline is, to get revenge for my family, I have to kill them.
Ooh, that's deep. I like that.
Because I planned on shooting the entire thing in Rockwell.
Once again, got one more time, folks. That's I like that. It's a nice concept. And we're gonna go into the actual showcase because we've been talking about Shadow Warriors. We're gonna for those this is for the video portion, folks, you're actually gonna see a trailer. And for those audio, we're gonna talk about a little bit more of Jarrell's YouTube channel while the trailer's going on. Then we're gonna wrap it up with the road ahead. So for those who are watching this on our YouTube channel or on imaginativisions.com, here is the trailer of Shadow Warriors, courtesy of Jerrell and RedEyez Entertainment. So check this out.
It feels good to be back in the neighborhood again. After spending 1 year away, when I came back, I definitely got more than I bargained for. While I was gone, my neighborhood was under attack by an evil criminal organization who calls themselves the Shadow Dolls. Ruthless, terrorizing. They take what they want and don't care who they hurt in the process. They hide in plain sight.
Shut the fuck up. I'm getting annoyed.
And they can be anybody. They can be our friends. My master, Makai, she did the best she could to fight them and try to take the streets back. It was too much to handle. So that's why she called us. And I'll admit, things didn't go the way we wanted at first. But if there's one thing the Shadow Dolls are gonna learn, we don't give up without a fight. This is our city, and we're gonna take it back.
Like this. And we're gonna head to the final section of our show, which is, and welcome back for those who have just who just welcome back to those who just finished watching the trailer. And you gotta listen to the audio parts to get that exclusive audio section on our Spotify. But let's talk about the road ahead. What is next? Obviously, you talked about the web series, but what else do you have planned that's in the chamber that you're or in development? You should as I should say.
On a personal note, and this is another thing that the pandemic did for me, it allowed me to, bring in the conversation full circle. It allowed me to get back into acting as far as audition.
Oh, okay.
In August, I went down to Orlando to compete in a talent showcase where they were bringing in people that were dancers, singers, actors, any type of performer. They were bringing all these people down there. They had maybe 25 to 30 agencies and agents that were coming down to view all this talent. And, again, due to the pandemic, it gave me the opportunity to participate in that talent showcase. And when I went down there, I did an improv scene, I did a TV commercial, and I did a scene with another partner. And that was the first, because remember when I told you the story about when I auditioned for Sky High,
Yes.
and then that was the last straw, and I was like, you know what, screw this, I'm going to do this myself. That talent showcase was the first time I actually performed, in an audition capacity since I did that Sky High interview. And it was very rejuvenating for me because it reminded me why I started this. I walked out of it saying to myself where, even if I don't get contacted by any agency, or even if nobody liked my performance or whatever, it actually just felt good to go on stage and just perform again and not think about, anything that's gonna happen. It's just like it just took me back to my roots, and it rejuvenated me as far as, like wanting to continue to do what I'm doing. So, and and even then, like when the showcase was over, there were 4 agencies that reached out to me that wanted to talk to me about maybe doing like acting work for them. So I'm gonna start getting back into that, like doing that again. But the main focus right now, aside from continuing doing the web series, because there were a lot of people ended up getting like a decent following from, as far as like the YouTube channel is concerned, there are a lot of people that, you know, appreciate the CW, DC TV, and the HBO Max stuff the same way I do. So I definitely have to keep that going. Like I'm never gonna not do the YouTube channel, because the thing about the YouTube channel, it gave me an outlet to talk to people when I was going through like the rough times and the divorce and everything. Like it was like an emotional cleanse for me to sit in front of a camera and just talk about my favorite TV shows. And the bonus was having people respond to me, and give likes on my video and talk to me about this stuff. Like there are people that write like paragraphs of things to me on a YouTube review that I did for a TV show, because they just love this stuff as much as I do. And I always told myself when I did the YouTube channel, I'm not doing this to become a YouTube star, to become rich and famous. I mean, if that naturally happens, great. But I'm doing the YouTube channel because I genuinely just like talking about this stuff. So that's never going to go away. But the main focus right now is Rockaway City. Getting prepared, finishing up the episodes, getting everything in order, because I want to start, casting and preparing to shoot this when the springtime comes around.
Okay, so next
yeah.
year is the goal.
Yeah, so the winter is being dedicated to get prepared for the spring.
Okay, so for pre-production, I should say.
Yeah, all the pre-productions that have to be out. So that's it. And in the meantime, while I'm doing the Rockaway City thing, I said I'm gonna keep reaching out to the agencies that I was doing, like trying to see if there are auditions for me and see if I can do other stuff as well. So it just, like I said, it's more like a resurgence and a rejuvenation. But Rockaway City is definitely, that's the main focus of what I want to do right now.
So it seems like your journey just kind of went full circle in a way. It was kind of like you went through, just to recap it, it's just like you started out, you had your origins, the roadblocks, obviously the divorce, people left the project, but everything you went through just came back full circle, and now you have that, as they say, you got the mojo back. You got the spark back, you got the bug back, and now you're back to auditioning, you're back to working on your projects and everything else. And it's just, dude, brother, it's just been one hell of a journey. Just wish you nothing but the best of luck. And obviously, we're gonna have you back in a year's time when you are in development, so we can talk a little bit about Rockaway City. And please tell the people where they can find you.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can find me. Shoot, where can't you find me at this point? I mean, you can find me on IG at RedEyez Blackfire. That was, that was my original name before I shortened it. You can find me on Twitter at RedEyez Media, and again, it's always RedEyez with a Z, because I just think it looks cooler with the Z versus the S. And then the main place where you can find me, you can definitely find me on YouTube at RedEyez Entertainment. Again, RedEyez with a Z. Especially if you're a fan of DC, we do Marvel as well. Like we do Marvel reviews as well. But it's like I said, it's the DC safe space for those that like DC TV, DC TV and films. Like there is no DC bashing on RedEyez Entertainment. I said we got a little Marvel for y'all as well, and even video games. Like I do live streams for like Street Fighter. Like I did live, like when I first started the YouTube channel, the very first video game that I live streamed was Tomb Raider. So if you want to watch, if you want to watch me get Laura Croft killed 50 million times before I actually complete that stage, like definitely, it's an enjoyable train wreck watching me do certain things. But I said we do video games, and things as well. Unfortunately, the one thing I did have to remove from the channel, I did stop doing wrestling reviews. Only
they flag like crazy.
Yeah, only because between work, because I have an actual job as well, but between work and doing the reviews for the other stuff, the wrestling stuff would end at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, look, I gotta go to work. I can't be staying up here like doing no wrestling reviews. So I unfortunately had to cut that out. But who knows? Like if certain things change down the line, like we might reincorporate that. But yeah, I said, but definitely, if you're a fan of DC TV, this is the place to be.
And thank you very much, Jerrell. It was just an absolute pleasure. We're gonna hit to the outro, but of course, everybody, you can follow us here at imaginativevisions.com. You can also, just a quick couple of announcements. My name is Rachel. Is official date is coming March 9th, 2022. So happy birthday, Mom. It's gonna be on your birthday. Of course, Heart to Heart, a visual novel demo is out right now. You can download it at imaginativevisions.com. For the Windows, if you have Windows and operating system 64, I believe I uploaded the 32-bit one as well. And if you don't have a Windows, you can play it online. I did put it online. You can play it via browser, so you can just check that out. And of course, we will have more from Imaginative Visions Journeys. I'm going to try to do this bi-weekly or monthly, but obviously, just like Jerrell, wear a lot of hats, and production comes first before any of the podcasting. So I'm working on literally 4 projects, and my friend just hit me up with something else for a possible, I can't talk about, but probably another possible video game for the Cry Hero universe. So I'm going to be talking about that down the line. So this is Justin saying later days. We will catch you on the next one. This has been episode 5 of Imaginative Visions Journeys. Jerrell, once again, thank you. It's been a pleasure, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Later days, folks. Hit that outro.
Thank you for joining us for Imaginative Visions Journeys. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from Imaginative Visions, you can visit imaginativevisions.com.